and we were like, yes, but and I still have right now as well goosebumps when I'm telling you this, right? I couldn't be formally engaged, Melooha and GRX10, even before GRX10 was formed, right?
Yeah.
I'm very thankful to you guys that, you volunteered your time, not having any expectations about where this could go, right? Uh, and selflessly helped me out, right? Even during the, startup journey, I remember I was, um, I was, uh, in Mumbai for the final auditions, and we had made some claims about, astrology, Bollywood, cricket, and
Right.
right.
Yeah.
And they said you need to substantiate, and Shriram and you had helped us first come up with those claims and
Yeah.
then substantiate as well. So I called both of you, and you guys churned some data, went through some sites.
And I think that came up in.
The most commonly asked question, and the reason I gave you this input is it's not based on anecdotal small data.
Hmm.
It's based on a very high volume of data.
Hmm.
The most commonly asked question on Melooha is, when will I get married?
Wow.
Right?
Is that from one of the two sexes, one of the two genders?
No, it's like almost 50-50%.
Oh wow.
Oh, so everybody wants to know when they'll get married. Is
That's
it?
right. Everyone wants to know when they will get married. The age group wise, most of the people are below 28, who are
Wow.
like 18 to 28 is the age group, and 50% gender wise. So this is the most commonly asked question. Now, they are not in a desperate situation. They are not in a, so if this was the most commonly asked question, and if they were in like 35, let's say, or up, yeah, I would say maybe they are desperate, right? So no, I think this is a misconception. Uh, People do feel the need for a product like this. Yeah, there are people who are in a desperate situation, and this is a good place for them. But this is a good place for people who are.
नमस्ते शार्क्स, मेरा नाम है विक्रम लाभे और मैं हूं फाउंडर एंड सीईओ ऑफ मेलूहा.
Side as Vikram, and we are very fortunate to have him as our first customer at GRX10, and we welcome him today to our second episode of the GRX10 podcast, where we'll talk about Melooha, his passion towards astrology, his drive to serve humanity and to fulfill the need of people, and to build a platform to provide a credible source of guidance and to authentically provide the true form of astrology at a democratized and a large scale to mass people. We are fortunate to have him as our first customer at GRX10, and he joins us today to talk about his experience on Shark Tank, as well as his journey to launch Melooha and to take it to the current level and beyond. So, Vikram, thank you for joining us. And Vikram is an old friend of ours, and we are really fortunate to have him support us, not just join us on this podcast. And primarily, Vikram is the founder of Melooha. Vikram, would you like to tell us a little bit about Melooha?
Sure. Yeah. First of all, thank you, Prem. Thank you, Shriram, for inviting me for this podcast. Really means a lot. Yeah, Melooha. Maybe I'll start with the journey. What led me to build Melooha, right? Um, I started my career way back in early 90s as a chip designer, and very quickly reached a peak. I have US patents, I have technical publications, but then I decided to quit that life, move back to India in 2005 to set up the R&D center for that company. Very big decision at that time. I had no management experience. Um, I land in Bangalore as a first employee, start the R&D center. From my hotel room, we had absolutely nothing. And over the next 10 years, I built that to be a 1,000 employee company across Bangalore and Hyderabad. Life was again perfect. All right, I call that as a second peak. But again, I decided to quit that peak at my peak of my career, not knowing what I want to do. So I come out, I do my first startup, profitably sell it. Then I did my second startup journey, amazing journey, right? I decided to come out of that as well, and I'm building Melooha. The reason I told this story is, I've been very fortunate. I've had many peaks. right? As well as valleys through this journey, right? On the personal side as well, there have been ups and downs, and astrology has been a guiding force throughout this journey. People give me credit for what I am today, but I strongly believe at least 50% of that belongs to the credible and accurate guidance I always received from astrologers about what to do, what not to do, when to do, what to delay, right? And that's what led me to feel that I've been so fortunate to have access to some really talented astrologers, and there are very few of those left. And this is completely mathematics. So why not build a platform which is credible with astrology as a source to provide that credible guidance to every human being on the planet? So that's what led me to Melooha.
So Melooha is an astrology platform which automates the mathematics of astrology and provides this to people who might need any kind of support or any kind of a guidance in their life.
Absolutely.
That's what Melooha is.
Melooha is, you can call it a credible source of guidance in your pocket. It's an app, so you can download it on your phone. And being an app, it's available 24/7. It may be middle of the night or any time of the day or any situation. You can open the app, type in your question, and in less than 20 seconds, you have your answer. So yeah, that's what Melooha is basically.
Wow. So it's service oriented kind of an endeavor that's been guiding you to build this platform.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
And what has your experience been, Vikram? You said with regards to astrologers that you've dealt with in your past, some of them have not been credible. Can you share with us any, either a funny story or any story that you dealt with an astrologer that was not good or not credible?
Yeah, you know what? I have been going to astrologers for at least 25 years, at least. Um, More than that, actually, right? And, my curious behavior actually led me to go to these astrologers. It was not I needed some guidance or anything. I was like just curious that, people say there's something like astrology and it can help you. So that led me to go to astrologers. And I would be very honest, right? Most of the times, what they told me never happened. But because I was so curious, I will go to the next one. um, I'll go to the next one. And then, fortunately, I found some really talented astrologers. And as a result, I could very clearly see that the problem is not in astrology. The problem is in the quality of astrologers that exist today, right? So yeah, there are several examples I can give of bad as well as good. Bad have been to test the astrologers. Sometimes I have said that um, I've asked a question which I knew the answer. Let's say career related, right? Can I be successful in software industry? And the answer they would say, they would take 10 minutes to analyze everything, and they would say, yeah, you should probably do arts. That is where you would be very, very successful, right? And there have been several instances like that have happened, right? I also want to maybe cite a event that made me believe in astrology without really knowing a lot about astrology. It was way back actually. Early 90s. My father had a very successful construction business, irrigation contractor, and his partnership was going through a very tough period. He had brought in one of his relatives as a partner, and then he and my mom went to US for a vacation, gave him all the powers, and when they came back, he had transferred everything out within a 15-day period. Mentally, this was very stressful for my father. He was not a believer in astrology or anything, so he would not go. But my mother had heard of an astrologer, so she wanted to go, and so she said, "Vikram, I want to go. Can you take me?" So I went there as a driver for my mother. But because I had gone
How
there,
old were you when this happened?
this was in I think 92, so this was 20-year-old. So I'm sitting there and it's like a old times big room. The 85-year-old guy is sitting on one side of the room on the floor, and there are 25, 30 people sitting your turn comes, you just go in front, you ask your question, and the guy looks at something, no computers, nothing, and tells you. So everyone can hear, no privacy, nothing, right? Those times. So our turn comes, and my mother and I go there, sit, and my mother says that, she narrated the issue. The guy looked at the chart and he says, this is a crooked minded guy. And he says, does his name start? I mean, he said few other things. And then he says, does his name start with? And then without taking a pause, he says, is it? And we were like, yes, I still have right now as well goosebumps when I'm telling you this, right? I couldn't believe that the guy can even tell the name. Maybe he had 2, 3 names and he picked one of those. But astrology, I mean, we know that you can, when a child is born, you look for the alphabet by which the name gets decided. A lot of people do that, right? So maybe that's the theory he used to figure out, and maybe there is a next level. But yeah, I would say that was the first time I heard something that was like mind-boggling.
So Vikram, if we look at some of the most rational minds today,
Mhm.
also a lot of people from the Silicon Valley, where you're also from, right? And also when people publicly talk about, when such people publicly talk about a subject like astrology, they often end up being on the skeptical side of things always, right? And they also cite cases of not enough analytical evidence for a subject like astrology, right? Not many studies have been done on it, or not many studies have conclusively proved that there is a formula that can be successfully applied, which can mathematically tell you what it is going to be.
Yeah, I think it's a very good question. And honestly, I get asked this by majority of the people. I tell them about Melooha, what we are trying to build, right? And not just asked, a lot of people out of their concern, they've advised me, why are you doing this, right? And I'm sure there are a lot of people who make
I'm
fun
sure
of
there
me.
are a lot of uncles who will say, "ये क्या कर रहे हो बेटा?"
Yeah, it's not just uncles. I would say it's also my peers. It's also, people who are like me or maybe more analytical than me, right? But have not experienced the powers of astrology, right? And they are in majority, honestly, right? And to be honest, you know, this is, this is a bigger reason for me to do this, right? To me, it's a sign of how bad the perception about astrology has gotten today, right? Is it really a science or not, right? It's something that hopefully through Melooha's journey, we'll be able to draw a conclusive, we will be able to bring conclusive evidences on this, right? But can it help you as a guide? Absolutely no doubt in my mind. Okay, absolutely no doubt in my mind. Based on purely my experiences, I would say. Um, my my thoughts on why it has lost its sheen, right, is this was written up like 5,000 years back, right, in some language by some munis, right, and then they handed it over to someone else. When they handed it over, it may have been in the same language, it may have been in a different language. They probably wrote their own interpretation and handed it over. And there have been several of these revisions that these granthas have gone through, right? And I'm sure as a result, there has been some translation loss, right? The second reason why there has been a loss, I believe, is, if I am, I want to, keep my supremacy on the knowledge, and if I'm the teacher, a lot of times I may not want to share 100% of what I know. I may only share 90% of what I know, right? So there have been, I believe, multiple reasons why about 30% of that astrology related knowledge is lost, right? And as a result, see, what is science, right? You do one experiment, and if you can repeat it 100 out of 100 times, it is science, right? Astrology definitely is not that today, right? um, One, because of that translation loss, and second, also because of, like, there are millions of, you know things one needs to look at, right, before they can conclusively answer a question. One, not everyone has time to look at everything they need to look at. All astrologers have time, right? Number two, even if they have time, they may not have studied the subject in greater detail to be able to interpret everything. And as a result, their accuracy suffers. So that is also adding to the challenge of making it more predictable, basically, right? So the reasons why people feel the way they feel is real, right? I don't dispute that at all, right? But at the same time, the basis on which astrology is built is also completely real. And with AI and the latest technology, it empowers us to bridge this gap which has been created over 5,000 years. And this gap can be filled in a rapid pace. You don't need 5,000 years, you don't need 100 years, you probably don't even need 10 years. You just need a lot of users using it and giving you feedback. And we would learn and start to bridge that gap. Next phase of astrology, which took off, I would say about 5-7 years back, was of aggregation of astrologers on platform. Okay, so people have put together platforms, they have listed astrologers on it, right? And you can book an appointment, take consultation online, pay online, right? That has been the second phase, and that I think has made a lot of astrologers visible to a lot of people, which was a great help, right? However, there is a fundamental challenge in that model. Astrology is a unregulated space. What that means is if I go to a doctor, a qualified doctor, right, I know he could be a good doctor or a great doctor. Very rarely it, right? Whereas astrology, there is no requirement like that.
Yeah. Astrology can perhaps screw up the person's mind and
100%.
cause great harm because giving them wrong advice and guidance.
That's right.
And of course, there is no MBBS like degree in astrology.
There is, right? There is, to be honest, there is a master's and there is PhD as well. However, it is not mandatory for you to
Yeah.
have that qualification to become a practicing astrologer.
There's no licensing.
There is no licensing.
There's no bar exams.
Yeah, there's none of that, right? Which is why the quality has suffered a lot, right? And to me personally, having access to talented astrologer, was a big reason I'm here, as I said, right? Not everyone has that access. So I started thinking, how do I democratize this knowledge so that every human being on the planet has access to the same high level of accurate guidance, right? And that led me to read astrology books, not to become an astrologer, but to understand if this is really mathematics, if this
Vikram,
is
I wanted to ask you into your journey from leaving semiconductor and getting into astrology, where perhaps you can tell us a little bit about the books and the study that you did. But before you go there, I wanted to understand from you, and you were asked this question on Shark Tank also, what is astrology?
मुझे ना बेसिक्स बताओ ये चलता कैसे
Yeah, what was shown was partial answer, so
Yeah.
this allows me to give the complete answer, right? uh, you know um, Earth is surrounded by sun, the moon,
Yeah.
the planets, the stars, right? All these planets, stars, moon, sun, they're always moving, right? The relative positioning of these have an influence on human beings all the time. Okay, the study and the interpretation of this is called astrology. That is that science which helps you understand if moon is at a certain degree, sun is at a certain degree, and the rest of the planets are at a certain degree, and at the time of your birth, right, what it means for you, right? And as the time is changing, their positioning is also changing. So how is the impact of that changing? So the study of this is astrology. Basically, we want to give a relatable example, because what I talked is hard to believe. You can't see that impact on a daily basis, right? However, we human beings tend to believe if we are able to quantify the impact, or if we can see what someone is telling, right? So we all know that on a full moon the tides are highest, and on a new moon the tides are lowest, right? It's an established fact, right? And the reason it is established is you can see the moon and you can see the full moon,
Yeah.
and you can relate it to tides are high,
Yeah.
right? No moon, tides are low, right? Uh, you know, uh, what we can see, we believe, right? Now, similarly, so Earth has 70% water. Our body has 70% water, right? Um, so similarly, the moon, the sun, all the other planets, right, have a direct influence on our body.
Mm.
And astrology is a study of that.
And was this predominantly like an Indian kind of a center of excellence that we had centuries ago, or was it a worldwide kind of a
No, I
phenomenon?
think this has been there in all ancient civilizations. Um, Romans have their own version of astrology. Egyptians have their own version of astrology. Chinese have their own, right? So yeah, all ancient civilizations have their own variations. They all lead you to the same outcome.
So the answers are the same.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Even in India, there are variations of Vedic now, right? There's Gemini, there is KP, there are different variations. But it's like, 2 plus 3 is 5, 1 plus 4 is 5, 3 plus 2 is 5, 5 plus 0 is 5, right? Yeah. So how you arrive at that, so there are the paths they have taken is slightly different, but they give you the same outcome.
So it's your endeavor to kind of remove the bad quality of astrologers, or at least reduce their effect of people seeking guidance, and provide a platform which democratizes the availability of good astrologers to people who might need this through Melooha.
Yeah. So what I would say is, honestly, we we are not the ones who want to qualify good and bad astrologers. We are here to create a credible source of guidance for every human being on the planet
Hmm.
by taking a scientific approach to giving every answer. And to be able to do that, what we have done is we have pre-built. So the textbooks that exist for astrology, they talk of a lot of algorithms, right? We have taken those algorithms and pre-built them as software IPs. So IP will always give you the same answer, right? We have built, lots of those IPs, and then on top of that, we are wrapping it up with, yeah, intelligence-based questions. So a user asks a question, we intelligently figure out what are the relevant IPs that needs to be fetched for this to be able to answer this. What, is it relationship related? Is it career related? If it is career related, is the person looking for a job? Is we want to be entrepreneur? So it intelligently picks that up, right? And those IPs are pre-built, so they get processed. Answer gets computed based on the user's date of birth, place of birth, time of birth, right? And then it gets displayed. So there is a very high level of repeatability. You ask the same question today, you ask the same question, a year from now, you will get the same answer, unless we found a bug in one of the IPs which we updated.
So your IP is also to use the right IPs is also something that is
That's right.
decided by you, and maybe it's learned over time what are the right
That is
set of
correct.
IPs.
That is correct. So that's the prediction engine, which is the core IP that we have built, right? And it's, already we compute more than few lakh different data points, and intelligently we pick up hundreds of those depending on what the question is asked, on what needs to be computed. Now, as a human, to compute few lakh data points, right, it would practically take a very, very long time, assuming they have the skills to do it accurately and every time. Even if they have a skills, right, sometimes you don't have time and you are trying to answer quick. Sometimes you're not feeling well. Well, there are different reasons why, and that's why we say, humans make errors, right? Yeah.
So Vikram, obviously you've done a lot of research for this. So after your job in the semiconductor industry and the startups that you did in the high tech sector, obviously you spend a lot of time studying about astrology and deep diving into this because you know so much. So can you take us through that kind of a phase in your life where you were really interested in doing something in astrology, and what did you have to kind of deal with to be able to get to this level?
Yeah, it's been a very interesting journey. I was at that time, part of a rocket ship 5 Tron. We were building a data pipeline. Life was perfect, right? You couldn't have asked for more, I would say, as a as a startup journey.
And Five Tran, you had already taken it from a startup to a several $billion, valuation
5.2
company.
billion dollar valuation, right?
5.2,
Yeah,
which,
I've been very
yeah,
fortunate to be part of that journey from a
mm,
very early stage to
yeah,
a market leader in the space.
yeah,
Valuation was definitely very good, which is one part. But what gives me a lot of satisfaction is we created a product which was a very disruptive at that time. Right, very few people were even thinking of building something like this.
mm,
Connectors were at that time mostly built by humans.
mm,
Companies would hire engineers to build connectors,
mm,
right? And we built this data pipeline as a product, where you don't need an engineer. Forget about engineer. Your HR person can set it up,
mm,
right? And it always works. Is what we always believed in, that it should be a quality which should always work, right?
mm,
And today we have global giants as our customers,
mm,
and of course startups as our customers as well,
mm,
right? So yeah, very fortunate to have been part of that journey, right? um, you know uh, what I've been looking for from, I told I quit my corporate world at the peak, did my first startup, right, profitably sold it, then the 5 tran journey, right? While I really enjoyed everything I did, somewhere inside me I would always feel that, yeah, this gives me status, this gives me title, this gives me money, but I never did anything for any of this. They were a byproduct of, um, what happened as a result of what we did, right? So I was always looking for, okay, what is it that really excites me? And through these journeys, right, be it PMC Sierra or 5tran, right, what really gave me satisfaction was to see the people I hired at a junior level or whatever level, identify the right strengths and talents in them, groom them, and see them prosper, right? And then see them do really, really well in their life. So, what really, gave me a kick is to build these people and help them achieve, what their true potential was, or maybe more, right?
wow, mm,
Um, so I started to feel that I have been very fortunate in my life with astrology as a important source. So if these guys can do what they have done without having this source, right? Just imagine where they will reach if they had the same support that I always had,
mm,
right? Um, that's where my journey towards exploring this. So I call it a purpose of life now, right?
mm,
Of can this be built started?
mm,
So as a first step, I read few books to convince myself this is mathematics, this is algorithms. I watched tons of YouTube videos. Yeah. Again, um, to to understand how this works, right?
mm,
Not to become an astrologer, right? And once I was convinced, then I went to the astrologers I trust, right? I've been taking their guidance for last 10, 15 years, right? And been big source,
mm,
right? So I went to them and I said, this is what I want to build.
mm,
And I would do only if you are part of the journey, because that prediction engine
yeah,
is your mind, right?
yeah, yeah,
Right. And I need to take that out and accurately implement that as a SaaS platform,
mm,
right? So yeah, that's how I started. The initial reaction has been anything but positive, but I thank everyone who gave me that negative reaction, honestly, because I call them well wishers, right? I call them well wishers who would leave a rocket ship which potentially is going to be Nasdaq listed,
yeah,
right? And once in a lifetime opportunity to be part of that rocket ship, right from a very early stage to a Nasdaq listing, right? In a leadership role, right? Very, someone who has been able to make a more than reasonable impact on the journey. Yeah, yeah, but to me it was a no-brainer, because I felt, yeah, did I become part of 5tran journey because I wanted to uh, be recognized that, yeah, he's a guy from Nagpur who's been part of the journey to which company which got listed on Nasdaq. I never even thought,
mm,
So
right?
from there, how did you jump onto Shark Tank?
Yeah, yeah. So I believe in taking the plunge first and then figuring out where I have taken the plunge. uh, so yeah, I discussed what I want to build in Melooha with the CEO of Fivetran.
Yeah.
And I told him, I'm not in a hurry, but I want you to know this is what is my purpose of life and I want to build it. And he was very supportive. He was very concerned for me initially, just like everyone else. Hey, what are you thinking? Right. But he was very, very supportive. Right. And as a result, he said, okay, why don't you build this on the side? And the time comes when you need to go out and talk about it is when, you go out. Right. I've always believed in making myself redundant. So I always believed in, hiring, building leadership who would do the job. Right. So succession plan always I focused on. Right. So when the time came, which was in December of 2022, I officially came out of Fivetran. Right. Um, and then January onwards, we were working on the POC. March, we had a POC, just a basic proof of concept. We had built like 30 ability to answer 30 questions. There was no chat GPT, there was no generative AI, none of those things existed at that time. So, you know, I had typed out all the answers, all the variations of the answer. So if the user asked a question,
Wow.
and if the answer is X, if the situation is X, then the A answer comes. If the situation is B,
How many such permutation combinations?
oh,
did
lots,
I-
but only 30 questions. Okay. Again, I didn't know there's going to be a help like Chat GPT. So I didn't know how I'm going to solve this problem,
Wow.
right? But I knew I have to solve it. So I'll figure out how. Right. That's how I was looking at it. And then April, I saw a Shark Tank ad on TV. And in my mind, right, if I, this is a B2C,
This is April 22,
April 23,
23. Okay.
a year back, right? Yeah. And in my mind, right, if this is a B2C product, a lot of marketing expense and effort. And the best platform today in India is Shark Tank,
Mm.
right? So, I discussed this with my co-founders, and their natural reaction was, "We don't even have a sketch of the product. So what are you talking of, right? How do we even qualify? Forget about being on TV, right?" And my take was that, if we somehow crack the 4 rounds that exist in Shark Tank, right, we would be on TV. And if we crack the 4 rounds, we know we would be on TV, and there is some time after that before it is telecasted. And if we have a product in the market before it is telecasted, then we have the opportunity to touch millions of hearts.
Mm.
So with that goal, we said, okay, let's do it.
Mm.
And that's how we decided to go after.
So ChatGPT comes along and it accelerates your answers to these various permutations and combinations, helps you have a product soon enough. So when did you come to know about your appearance on Shark Tank?
It Shark Tank consists of 4 rounds.
Hmm.
First one, you do online submission in which you have to give a link to your product.
Hmm.
We gave a link to our PPT. But the pitch was but the pitch was very strong, I felt, and
Yeah.
or maybe they also felt. So we cleared that round. Next round was a video round.
Yeah.
We cracked that. Then they called us to in-person round in Mumbai in July last year. And these are the guys who are hired by Sony, professionals from various fields, experts in evaluating a startup,
Yeah.
right? So that was a 2.5 hour round, and we knew we have cracked that as well. And then I called the whole team to Pune, and he said, let's give it our best now, because I expect us to be called anytime,
Right.
For the final audition with the Sharks. And first week of October, we were called. Right. So that was a 3 day long, 2 days with various teams of Sony, creative team, storytelling team, and quite an experience, inside Film City, where, the studio next to ours was the Kaun Banega Crorepati, and the shooting was going on. And so yeah, we, 2.5 hours there as well. And we had a feeling it would get telecasted, although there was no deal. We had a feeling it would get telecasted.
So you're saying you went in with a PowerPoint presentation and
In the
you
by
went through directly to the telecast.
no, in the Shark Tank final round, we had a prototype ready.
Okay, so by that time you managed to put together a
We
prototype.
managed to put together a prototype,
Okay.
right? And so we had a prototype ready at that time. We had gotten it tested by about 50 people. It's a very small sample. You have extended family, 50 people, right? So if you go to an investor and say, you know 50 people have tested, they're going to say, oh, this is all your family members. So
Yeah.
right. But yeah, we had a prototype with which we went there. um, and the fact that we showed up on TV even after that, right, kind of talks of how unique the product is, right?
Also, the market for astrology is considered very large in India, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
as you said in Shark Tank, ABC, astrology, Bollywood, and cricket are the biggest crowd pullers in India.
Yeah.
So one would expect that the Sharks would have taken this very positively. They might have thought this is a great business opportunity. Some of them might have thought this is a partnership opportunity also. But you did not get funded. So just take us through your whole journey of what happened on the episode and how was it?
Yeah, very interesting, honestly. So yeah, we go into the Shark Tank. Well, the 2 days, right, of prep from Sony, right? So if you don't have a product that is selling, right, what is it the next best thing that you can sell, right, as an entrepreneur, right? uh, you know to us, the next best thing we could sell was our credibility,
Yes.
right? And in round one, round two, round three, what we had done was, we had a story about Melooha, and we ended the story with Fatak madam giving her intro, then Bhala, my co-founder, giving her his intro, and then I giving my intro, talking through, what I have successfully built in the past.
And these first three rounds were not with the Shark,
They were
the
not with the
Sharks,
Sharks, no.
but they were with the key people in Sony.
In Sony, yeah.
And do the Sharks kind of get a hint of what's happened in these rounds? Are they told any summary of these rounds?
We are told that they have no clue. So when we
Okay.
show up on stage is the first time
Yeah.
they hear about us.
Okay.
Yeah. So the Sony team actually felt that we shouldn't have our intros, in the pitch, the uninterrupted 3 minute that you get. We had our point of view, but they are experts and it's their show, so you have to do what they want you to do at that time. And we also trust them that they know better,
Mm.
right? So our actual pitch was less than 2 minutes, so it was not even about the time,
Mm.
right? They said, the Sharks will ask you, tell me about yourself, and then you talk about yourself. Don't put it in the pitch.
Mm.
In looking back, I should have resisted that more, is what I feel. Right?
Mm.
You're not allowed to give that intro, and while they showed a very shortened version of my intro in the telecasted episode, that question was asked when all Sharks were out.
Yeah,
showed
they finally asked you what were you doing and
Yeah,
before this.
yeah. So what is the point, right? Yeah. Yeah. Some of the very interesting things that happened, right? Aman Gupta has had his own experience. His wife went to some astrologer,
Mm.
and she said, कि, Aman Gupta ko kutta kaat jayega. So
उसने बोला कि मुझे कुत्ता काटेगा ठीक है
from that point onwards, he said, I'm worried. डर लगता है कुत्तों से, right? And honestly, I'm not surprised to hear what Aman said. Majority of the people, have a allergic reaction to anything to do with astrology, either because someone has said something to them which made them fearful, or which they could not digest, or which they did not believe, or which did not happen for various reasons, right? Astrology has reached the stage today because of various reasons, and which is why majority of the people, give this allergic reaction.
It's also about putting up a show about who you are, right? If you say, for example, hey, I really think what you're saying is credible, then people will start judging them and say, hey, this guy is kind of believing in things which are non-scientific, for example.
Yeah, and to be honest, right, this is another reason why I'm so motivated to build Melooha, right? Because I can tell you all the 5 sharks who evaluated our pitch, right? I would be surprised if even one of them did not consult an astrologer while picking their marriage date and time,
Hmm.
right?
Almost
The
100% they would have.
100%, right? So the most important decision in your life when you're making,
Most important decision.
it's a
Yeah.
life-changing decision, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Yeah, I mean, it's like when you become an entrepreneur as well, right? If you're bringing in a co-founder, if you don't know the co-founder, it's the most important decision you're making in the success of that startup, right? And so if you haven't brought the right co-founder, the chances are slim, right? Similarly, if when you're getting married, right, it's a very important decision, right? And I can tell you more, I can almost say with I was confident that all of them have consulted an astrologer, they or their family members.
Is there something that you could have done differently, say in the beginning of the episode or when it was being shot, to have changed the outcome in any way? Do you think you could have done something slightly differently or completely differently?
Or did you think that this was always going to be the case from the beginning,
Yeah.
given what you just said?
Maybe we have two questions there. One is, what was your expected outcome when you went into Shark Tank? And the second one is, what could you have done differently in the beginning of the show?
Yeah, so the best case expected outcome, of course, was a 5 shark deal, right?
Do you think that was something that you guys would have taken? You would have wanted that? Everybody would have put pressure on you to build the company.
No, honestly, we won't have taken that. We had discussed that as well, right? But on TV, everyone's seeing that 5 sharks want to invest, and then we making a call that we want to go with this shark.
Right, that would have been cool.
Yeah, that would have been the best outcome.
Who would you have partnered with if that would have happened?
There was a couple of guys who were not part of the shark that day, who are very tech focused.
Yeah.
Right. We would have loved to partner with them. We would have loved to partner with Anupam Mittal as well. There is a massive compliment.
Yeah, with Shadi.com and
yeah. I mean, Anupam Mittal, I've always been very. I really value the experience he has. That shows up in evaluating these startups.
Yeah, 100%.
Any kind.
Yeah.
Right?
He's on point most of the time.
Amazing, right? So I'm sure he won a complimentary, business, and second, the value he potentially would have added as well, right? I would have loved to. I would say, right? Another one I would say would have been very happy to have is Vinita from that 5, right? And the reason I say this is I would have loved to have others as well. Nothing against them, but of the 5, these 2 I felt did a reasonable evaluation of the product, right? Not on the business, right? They at least asked certain questions, right? Around that, right? Others came from a point of view of, is this real or not? And as a result, the whole conversation of that 2.5 hours revolved around trying to explain what astrology is, how it helps.
Do you think you should have prepared better for that?
In hindsight, absolutely, I feel so, right? Is there anything else is there any answer I could have done better? Again, I would say, yeah, definitely, right? Some of the answer I could have given better, right? But did I expect all sharks to be, totally sold on astrology when we show up, right? The answer is no. So we were in some way prepared, because anyone I talk to about Melooha, this is the first reaction I get from most of the people. So it was not totally unexpected, right? What we believed in was, if I look at Shark Tank, 80% of the products, right, are D2C. They are selling something, right? Homemade businesses trying to scale, right? Those are the 80%.
Yeah.
Right? There are very few entrepreneurs in India who even attempt building a SaaS platform. What we have built, right? There's a long way to go in terms of adding more IPs, improving the accuracy, and various other things, right? So there are very few entrepreneurs who even attempt to do this. We were on Shark Tank not just with an attempt, but with a prototype, with a working prototype, right? And we felt that there is people who are wanting to invest, they struggle to find such opportunities, and as a result they would be interested even if they do not believe in astrology. You don't have to be a believer in the product um, to invest. If you are coming in as an investor, I feel you have to evaluate the business, and then if you are sold on the vision, and this vehicle can help you achieve that vision, it's worth investing.
Do you think it was a two-step process, or it always is a two-step process? First is alignment in terms of what this company is doing with their fundamental beliefs.
Mhm.
Second is the business evaluation.
Mhm.
If that's the case, then do you think you could have positioned this differently? Have you ever thought of, say, positioning this in a manner that is, guidance based or counseling based? Maybe something like a counseling SaaS based tool based on, zodiac signs, for example. Have you thought of just playing the game outside the astrology definition itself?
Yeah, honestly, we did brainstorm this very initial time,
Yeah.
right? Very initial time, right? But honestly, that dilutes the value as well as the purpose we are building this. We are
Would
not
it have
just,
changed? Would it have changed the outcome in Shark Tank?
I don't know, but it doesn't matter.
Hmm.
We are building what we believe in
Hmm.
is a much higher value, right? And we wouldn't want to dilute the value.
Hmm.
See, is counseling is based on certain science, of course, right?
Hmm.
However, counseling is based on what I feel, let's say, as a counselor, is the right thing for Sri Ram today, based on what he's telling,
Hmm.
right? Astrology based guidance is not based on what I feel or what he feels or what you feel.
Hmm.
It's based on my date of birth, place of birth, time of birth,
Right. Right.
right? And we didn't want to dilute that value proposition at all.
Hmm.
So what happened at and immediately after Shark Tank? Because I think when we were looking at the product downloads, the ratings and stuff, right? They're very far and few tens of downloads and so on. What happened during this 2 days of Shark Tank?
The telecast time, you
Yeah,
say?
the telecast time of Shark Tank.
Yeah, it's a it's a golden time, I would say, in the journey of Melooha. Uh, the next 2-3 weeks after that, I can guarantee you, everyone at Melooha, we will never forget. Next few minutes to next few days, and then next few weeks. I mean, there are different things that happen in that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we were prepared. We were, you know, some of the guys who have appeared in the previous seasons of Shark Tank. So I had spoken to them about the experience and
Who did you
stuff.
speak to?
So there is a app called Ayurhythm.
Yeah.
They are in
Yeah.
Ayurvedic
Yeah.
consultation and stuff. So I've been in touch with the founders of them. I also wanted to invest in their startup
Hmm.
very early stage, actually, for whatever reason I couldn't.
Hmm.
So they were on Shark Tank,
Hmm.
I think season one. So I've been in touch with the founders, and they had warned me that what they went through was a massive load, and they couldn't cope up. They never expected they couldn't cope up. So be prepared, right? Um, so while we had these insights, a startup journey is full of constraints, right? Um, the the moment we knew when we are going to be telecasted, we reached out to all our service partners,
Hmm.
um, sharing them. Although we were under NDA, not to disclose until the telecast, right? Sharing them, uh, the pictures that were shared by Shark Tank for us to post, the content that we could post a day before, right, airing, right? The evidences. These are the evidences that we are going to be on Shark Tank on this day. And so we need your help to be able to support the potential massive volume that we expect post Shark Tank. Unfortunately, um, you know, right, for their own reasons and probably valid reasons, right? They have their own criteria of what they will allow and what they will not. I'll just pick one example, let's say, right? We were at 1,000 concurrent users, right? We wanted 100,000 concurrent users starting 26th of March, for at least 3 weeks. Now, for security reasons, this criteria that once you reach 80% of your allowed concurrency limit is when you can request to increase the quota, and they would only up to double it, because there could be a cyber attack and a startup could go bankrupt. So they have their own reasons, right? However, we had our own situation and we went all the way through formal channels as well as through influencing channels.
And you started this weeks in advance.
A week in advance. A week in advance, right? But we got a clear no answer 3 days before airing of the telecast. That just cannot happen, right? So then we tried to optimize the whole system as much as possible, right?
You
now,
mean optimize the performance of the app?
performance of the app, removing the bottlenecks wherever
Yeah.
we could, right? Do what is in your hand, right?
Whatever you could do on the client side.
That's what, right? That's what you can do, and we did all of that, right? The telecast started, and in 10 minutes, everything crashed. Everything crashed, right?
So this was a Thursday, right?
This was Tuesday evening, 26th of March,
11:15 p.m.
10. Yeah, it's about 10:20 is when our episode got
Sorry,
telecast.
10, 15, 10, 20.
10,
Yeah.
yeah. Within 10 minutes, everything crashed. I mean, so we had a meter of users, right? I mean, we had this Google Analytics, right? And up to the time of the telecast, for every 30 minutes, you could see how many users are there, and it would get updated every minute and stuff, right? Every few minutes. It was very static screen. The telecast starts, and it's like a running wheel. You can't see any spoke.
Wow.
Yeah. It was like, mind-boggling, right? I mean, so yeah, everything crashed. We ran out of our OTP quota as well in no time, right? The quota, again, getting the quota increased is a process and timeline, and again, what is allowed, what is not allowed. So that was another bottleneck we faced.
Who controls that?
AWS.
OTP also is controlled.
Then within couple of hours, our payment gateways, they blocked us out.
Oh.
They suddenly thought, so much money is coming, some kind of a spam.
Yeah. Even incoming money is a scam.
Yeah. So they blocked us out as well. And, you can imagine the plight of these users. Some are not able to download. Some are not able to get an OTP. Some get an OTP, but they are on a screen and it's just doing, buffering, right? Some are on a payment gateway. The gateway doesn't come. Because the load is on every screen. If you're lucky, you hit a button and it goes through, just because, maybe only 1% people are able to access, right? But it's not that 1% of the people are able to access everything seamlessly. You can access one screen, but then you are stuck. So everyone had a horrible experience as a result.
But despite that, the next day you were top 10 in the lifestyle category
That is correct.
on Apple Store.
That's right.
And
yeah.
I think Android also.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. I think that was probably those algorithms which helps you in ranking.
Yeah.
Looks at matrices like downloads, and we really, I mean, the downloads are out of the roof. We never expected such a high volume of downloads in such a short time, right? And I think that's probably helped us dramatically go up in ranking, right? But that doesn't change the user experience, right? We want to be known for a top class user experience, and the good part about being on Shark Tank for Melooha was we could get our vision out to millions of people, and we could really touch their hearts, right? The bad part of lots of them wanted to use first of all, and I hope at least some of the users who had bad experience, whether they gave a feedback or not, right, watch this podcast, right? I want to sincerely apologize to everyone who went through a horrible time, and I don't want to mince words. I want to call it horrible time, right? I'm also very, very thankful for the people who took an effort to go to the store and write a review.
Passionate review.
Yeah, passionate review. I'm very thankful to them. I strongly believe you shouldn't look at what they are saying. That in how they are saying, right? You have to look at how, as a result, what they feel right now, right? So those words are a reflection of what that person must have felt. They saw us on Shark Tank, probably were so inspired, motivated, downloaded the app right away, and then were so massively disappointed because of the experience, right? So it's that massive gap that existed between what we talked of on Shark Tank versus what actually happened because of a lot of things beyond our control. And I also want to thank these people, not just because they wrote, but to me, they represent a lot of other people who had similar experience but never wrote for whatever reason, right? They never wrote, right? So, yeah, so really thank, to each one of them for giving us this input. We have had sleepless nights, right? For several days. The team stepped up, did what we could, right? Things were breaking and we had to keep bringing them up, keep going back to, PhonePe said it's a week of SLA. We would not be able to remove this for a week. And we said, this is crazy, right? We use some back channel to get that sorted out. Customer delight is our top value. A lot, I would say. I don't want to just blame on external factors, right? Every time you build a SaaS product, right, your first customer really stresses it out, right? So we have also learned several things in terms of how to make this resilient, how to make this robust, how to make this scalable, right? And we have aggressively implemented most of those things right now, and as a result, the product is a lot better quality than what it was. We also wanted to make sure before we do any external outreach, people who are using it, right, are happy about it. So quickly we added a WhatsApp button in the product, which didn't exist, right? In the hero product, which is a ask a question Vani screen and the report screen, right? Every day people are sending us questions or comments. Initially, they were complaints, right, because of issues which were not in our control, but it gave us an opportunity to hear them out real time and respond to them.
How many?
So here is a few facts for you, right? I mean, I know you probably know it better, but Prem and I, when we sort of like started crunching numbers in the middle of the night.
Focused on core customer delight, right? Focus was anyone who has given a negative review or has had a negative experience. How can we improve their experience was the first thing. And once we improve their experience, then I personally went back to them saying, is there anything else we could do? And when a time came that, you guys have turned it around for me, amazing, great support, and I understand, what happened.
Yeah.
Then I would personally request that if you feel appropriate to change your rating and review, please go and do it.
So you didn't per se bribe them or
You have to build a model that is sustainable, right? If you don't do the right things, you can create a temporary perception, but not a long-term sustainable model, right? So we focused on the core, right, which is about looking at what issues people really faced, fix those, right? Go back to them, ask them to try it out, give more free questions so that they don't have to pay for that experience, right? And then go through a iterative process, right? Maybe some are happy, some are not, or some feel this is better but still not there, right? Go through that process, right? Also, as I said, we added this WhatsApp button, right? And it helped us hear them out, right, like that, and not just the people who go to store but others as well, right? And then we will solve their issues. And now I don't even request them, honestly. I just a few days later I go back and I check, okay, a few more people have added, and then I would send them a thank you note.
How many people have?
Shark Tank, I was like spending 15-16 hours doing this, and now I spend maybe 2 to 3 hours, and that's also more about product education than about issues.
Vikram, could you have done anything from the infrastructure point of view to have supported this telecast of Shark Tank beyond what you already did? You tried to reach out to all the service providers. Could you have done anything else?
Yeah, so as I said, right, I do not necessarily blame everything on external factors,
Yeah.
right? Definitely, right, we have our own learnings as well. When your product gets tested with 50,000 users, the architecture that you need to be able to support that is completely different. And as a startup, you don't over design, right? You
Of
never want to
course.
over design,
Yeah.
right? So I wouldn't say we had done something wrong, but there was a massive gap between what it needed to be versus, in certain areas, what it needed to be versus what we had built, right? And they were informed decisions, right?
Mm.
Because every time you over design, there's a cost, right? And if you're not going to have consistent load, then why do you want to have consistent cost?
Mm.
Yeah, so there's that learning. Could we have done? Yeah, there are certain things we could have done better.
Does it concern you that some of this demand will never come back to you?
I don't believe it will never come back to me. I'm a
Okay.
strong believer it's gonna come back.
So that is something that is completely, you're not affected by that.
No, honestly, I think we more than achieved the purpose of Shark Tank.
Mm.
We have touched millions of hearts.
Mm.
It's not just reflected in the downloads, but it is also reflected in the different types of people and the volume of people who have reached out to me. Okay, several have just sent notes saying, I'm just so touched by the vision you have, that you wanna give astrology the space that yoga has received today.
Yeah.
Right, which is the statement I had made in Shark Tank. So several of them, just because they want to see astrology revived, and there is a large um, volume of people. The percentage may be still small, but the absolute number is very large. Then there are ecosystem partners who have also reached out, right? E-puja companies, e-darshan companies, marriage portals,
Mm.
right? Practicing astrologers, all kinds of people. There are people with AI skills, back-end skills, who want to be part of the journey, right? So people have different motivations, and as a result, they have reached out, right? So we have more than achieved the purpose
Wow.
of Shark Tank. The high volume of downloads, I'm very sure this is going to come back, because um, if if a spike is all that you count on, then there is a fundamental issue in your business model, right? If a spike is all you count on for your business to be massively successful, I feel there's a fundamental problem in your business model, because the spike may come, may not come. We may not have been on Shark Tank, right? But we're still here, right? So yeah, I'm very, very positive that we would beat the volume we saw on those few days by a large number. Massive companies are built by taking the right baby steps. You should have a massive vision, but you should never lose your focus on what are the right baby steps that would lead you there. So right now we are very focused on what are those baby steps, and in our mind is the customer delight is the top value, as I said, right? So we want to make sure that yeah, we have feedback, we have received, we have incorporated the changes, right? We want to be continuously improving the quality of the user experience.
Yeah.
Right, what we believe is the better the user experience, the higher would be the retention of those users,
Yeah.
which is very important to us, right? And the higher the retention, the higher the probability that they will also add their family members on Melooha, right? Melooha gives you that flexibility that you can ask questions on behalf of your family members as well, right? And the next level is, once you have added your family members as well and you're super happy about the product, right, you would refer Melooha because it is helping you live a better quality life, right? So these are some of the things that we are internally tracking: how many people are adding family members, how many people are referring Melooha, right? Right, so these are some of very important parameters that we are tracking.
What is your North Star metric? The one single metric which is important to you?
Yeah. So, you know, in any B2C, right, you cannot achieve scale unless, you're a rare product like, let's say, ChatGPT, which went viral in no time, right? Uh, Majority of the companies would need to spend heavy marketing dollars
Mm-hmm.
to achieve growth,
Yeah.
right? I strongly believe if you have built a great product
Mm.
with a customer delight, as a top value, a time should come when the marketing spend, relatively speaking at least, comes down and virality picks up,
Mm.
right? And as a result, the total marketing dollar you're spending, the marketing dollar you're spending, when you look at it as a total downloads and user base, right, starts to look small and small, right? So we have some internal metrics on what that number should look like,
Mm.
right? We also have, some very ambitious retention goals. We also have some very ambitious repeat purchase goals, uh, as well as referral and family goals as well. Those are the things we are um, more focused on than absolute number of downloads.
Mm. And you mentioned in passing about partnership opportunities from ePooja and other such companies.
Yeah.
Do you have those goals as well for the remainder of the years to partner with some of these companies, or is this something that will be built upon later on?
These would be done tactically in this year. No, we are
Hmm.
not uh, focused on making those happen.
Hmm.
We are very focused on we wanted to solve one problem, right? We're very focused on making sure the user sees value from a customer delight as well as credible guidance,
Hmm.
right? Um, and this is not a easy problem to solve, honestly speaking, right? Um, some books as well as astrologers say, there are potentially a billion different data points that needs to be evaluated,
Hmm.
and to be able to answer a question you may need thousands of those, which
Hmm.
is like massive goal, right? So our focus is on making sure that a user asks a question, they should get a very credible answer, right? Everything else is part of the ecosystem which we want to be part of,
Hmm.
right? But we want to be very tactical about it in the near future. So yes, if opportunities come, we will evaluate them. We will look at what it means in terms of capital allocation, reprioritizing, and if it makes sense, then we will do it. Mhm.
From a marketing point of view, what are the activities that has kind of worked for you, and what are the activities or channels that you think are promising and you would like to kind of investigate or find out more about?
Yeah, I think fantastic question. Being a B2C, right? Um, and the question is coming from you, who's my guru in marketing.
No, Guru, you are Guru in all forms of life, Vikram. Not only just
No, Prem,
work, but also in so many other things.
I really mean it. I think you, both of you, right? You brought Shriram in as well, and um, the the thought process, the experience, the value you guys bring to table, I couldn't have asked for more.
Thank you
So
so much, Vikram. Really
yeah,
means a lot coming from you.
yeah. So and another thing, right? Even before we formally engaged, Melooha and GRX10, even before GRX10 was formed, right?
Yeah.
I'm very thankful to you guys that you volunteered your time, not having any expectations about where this could go, right? Uh, and selflessly helped me out, right? Even during the startup journey, I remember I was um, I was uh, in Mumbai for the final auditions, and uh, we had made some claims about astrology, Bollywood, cricket, and
Right.
right.
Yeah.
And they said you need to substantiate, and Shriram and you had helped us first come up with those claims and
Yeah.
then substantiate as well. I called both of you, and you guys churned some data, went through some sites.
And I think that came up in Shark Tank
It did.
also.
It
Yeah.
did. It did. Right. So yeah, first of all, I'm very thankful that I have access to people like you and Shriram, right? And you guys have been selflessly helping me, right? Um, I think in Melooha's journey, this has been very important. We couldn't afford a senior marketing person at that time, but you made me feel very comfortable. Don't worry about it, right? At
Hmm.
that time, right? The other thing which you guys educated me was, uh, astrology and related words have like a very high volume of search count,
Right.
right? Um, and then it became a no-brainer that when it comes to marketing, this should be the primary channel,
Mm.
right? Now there are two ways you can approach it. One is organic and one is inorganic, right?
Mm.
Okay. Um, so yeah, Melooha feels very fortunate to be a first customer of GRX10. Uh, and I think the SEO responsibility that you said we should start right away and you took on,
Mm.
right? I think that's working so well now.
Mm.
SEO takes time for results to come, but I'm sure they will come,
Mm.
right? Um, so yeah, that's an important marketing strategy for us. Social media has become a big channel these days, right? So they have heard about Melooha. So far that's just like SEO. It takes its own sweet time to give you results, but I think that engine is going well, right? um, and I think we are at a stage now. Shark Tank, of course, was a massive marketing opportunity for us, which worked really really good for us.
Vikram, what is your ideal customer look like? Is there an ideal customer profile?
It's a very very good question, actually. This is something we
I
debated.
love compliments.
Yeah. We debated quite a bit, but honestly the answer is no. And the reason I say this is, someone may have a health issue at the age of 25, and someone may not have a health issue even at the age of 70.
Mm.
Someone may have a relationship situation, um, either in their 20s or in 40s or in 60s, right? So depending on the situation in your life, and when that happens, you become a potential, customer of
Mm.
Melooha, right? So no, there is no ideal age group or a persona in terms of a profession or any of those. I think astrology, as I said, you want to be a credible source of guidance to every human being on planet, right? And the reason I say this is, subconsciously we are just so used to asking questions every day, multiple questions, to people we trust.
Mm.
Sometimes our friends, sometimes our family members, a lot of times to God, and then sometimes also we, in situations we also go to professionals like psychologists or astrologers,
Mm.
right? Now several of these questions cannot be answered by astrology based guidance, like, should I watch this movie or not? You may ask a friend,
Mm.
right? But there are several other questions which you ask your friend or your family member or someone you trust,
Mm.
which can be answered by Melooha,
Mm.
right? So this is if not the primary source, this is a potentially at least an alternate credible source
Mm.
of guidance for every human being on the planet.
Mm. So it's not about monetization, it's about just enabling everybody to have access.
That's right. Yeah, I've always believed, and this was our philosophy in Five Tran as well, right? If you solve a problem, customer would be happy to pay, right? And when they are happy to pay, make it reasonable. Don't overcharge, right? Put a price which is comfortable, right? So yeah, that's the approach we have taken. We are focused on solving the problem, and if we solve the problem right, I think people would be happy to pay. The most commonly asked question, and the reason I gave you this input is it's not based on anecdotal small data.
Mm.
It's based on a very high volume of data.
Mm.
The most commonly asked question on Melooha is, when will I get married?
Wow.
Right?
Is that from one of the two sexes, one of the two genders?
No, it's like almost 50-50%.
Oh wow.
Oh, so everybody wants to know when they'll get married. Is
That's
it?
right. Everyone wants to know when they will get married. The age group wise, most of the people are below 28, who are
Wow.
like 18 to 28 is the age group, and 50% gender wise. So this is the most commonly asked question. Now, they are not in a desperate situation. They are not in a, so if this was the most commonly asked question, and if they were in like 35, let's say, or up, yeah, I would say maybe they are desperate, right? So no, I think this is a misconception. uh, people do feel the need for a product like this. Yeah, there are people who are in a desperate situation, and this is a good place for them. But this is a good place for people who are curious as well, right? This is also a good place who are believer as well, not just the ones who are desperate or needy.
When you provide this kind of a platform that allows people to, curious people, to ask different kinds of questions, what are some of the funnier questions that you have encountered? Like, for example, I remember when we were testing the app, my wife typed a question saying, "Is this guy expected to be home at 6 p.m. today?" And, stuff like, how many girlfriends did he have in college before?
I still ask, will I have more girlfriends in life? So yeah, what are some of these funny questions that people ask?
Yeah, I think people have been asking some very funny questions, as well as, um, I feel bad for the situation they are in when they're asking that question,
Mm,
right? Uh, Funny questions have been, of course, around relationship mostly,
yeah.
right? How many girlfriends would I, I'm already in a relationship. Can I have one more girlfriend, right? So the funny questions, I call them funny. Maybe they are serious from their perspective, right? They're seriously asking because they really want to be in another relationship, right? But yeah, relationship related questions are um, not very traditional, you can call it, right? Yeah, so people are looking for multiple relationships at times. um, uh, some of the stressful situations that people go through, life threatening and stuff,
Mm,
right? So feel sad for them.
mm.
uh, but yeah, those are the kind of people who are also looking for help, but it's more on the first category than on the second category, at least in this volume of data we have
So
currently.
what comes across very strongly is your mission-driven, purpose to, provide a service for people who are looking for guidance and credible astrology services. And the other thing that comes across so strongly to me is your customer-focused, attitude. Everything else comes later. Satisfy the customer's need to provide a credible service.
Mhm.
And as you said, many people in India actually don't take the tougher path of building a solid product, of enabling that customer to be satisfied. They tend to take, shorter cuts. But people who I think ultimately succeed are people like yourselves who are driven by a purpose and a mission and are able to service that need holistically. Thank you. It's been such a enriching experience for both of us, I'm sure.
Yeah, amazing. I think I still recall the first meeting when, I asked you this question: what exactly do you mean by astrology based advice?
Hmm.
And you gave this analogy of, the need to carry an umbrella after you see the weather forecast, right? And then you had this analogy of comparing a weather forecast with what a Melooha could potentially deliver to you. Is the equivalent of a weather forecast, because both would have an equally quantitative base, and you would want Melooha to reach that level of trust with, a valid science backing it.
Yeah.
And then you automatically call it out as, hey, you know what, it's very similar to a weather forecast. It's telling you to either carry an umbrella or apply sunscreen, maybe. So I think that was really amazing for us.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much. I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. I want to add an example I now use because you reminded me of that analogy,
Yeah.
right? We are a cricket crazy nation,
Hmm.
right? Now imagine if there is a good batsman on crease. Likely, the good batsman will score runs, right? But also, the good batsman has to actually play well, so do the karma to score runs, right? So karma is extremely important, right? But now imagine the guy is on the crease and he knows the third ball of this bowler is going to be deadly, and the fourth and fifth ball are going to be loose,
Hmm.
right? The batsman can be better prepared
Hmm.
to defend the third ball and be better prepared to hit the fourth and fifth ball out of the park. You still have to hit. So karma still needs to be done.
Right.
However, astrology is that tool where you can minimize the impact of bad periods and maximize the potential of good periods. So if you have access to a tool which helps you do that, it dramatically improves your probability of success. And that's what we are set out to build.
Wonderful. Thank you,
That is
Vikram.
amazing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your presence here, Vikram. I know
you.
you took so much of time out of your busy schedule to be with us here, and I think that's amazing for us.
Thank you so much. Thoroughly enjoyed, guys.